والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. آمين. Brothers and sisters, Brother Shahran and all the organizing committee from IIIT, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to our session today. So we'll still have, inshallah, one more session to go. By next week I'm preparing the material. It's a new one. Is going to be barriers to thinking from Quranic perspective, inshallah. But for today, as I promised you and Brother Shahran promised you, we are going to what we are going to do is the infusing thinking into classroom. There are two theories when it comes to teaching thinking. So this is good for those who are teachers or those who are, inshallah, willing to become teachers or lecturers. This is good for you. Also, it's good with your children. This is another point. So, by the way, infusing thinking into classroom can be also, you can apply to your discussions with your children as well, in parenting, maybe. So there are two theories. One is that teaching thinking is through teaching skills, okay? And there are those who are pro this theory and practice. It's not just a theory now, by the way, it's a practice, including our university UIA or IIUM. We are practicing it for the last 20 years and maybe more. So whether you teach thinking skills to the students and then they, let's say, they, what they call it, they practice it by changing the attitudes, mental attitudes, through the skills. The other theory is many Westerns believe that it is, or they are pro the second theory, infusing thinking into classroom, and not only classroom but also into curricula. Okay, actually you cannot just infuse in one aspect without, infusing thinking through the others. So if you want, for the second theory, you have to infuse thinking into classroom, into curriculum, and also into the minds of the lecturers and teachers. So this is like a training, I hope, training the trainers. So for this, maybe it's training the trainers. And that's what Brother Shahran always also like. We held many sessions, training sessions. So the training sessions, whether you want, like our aim is to infuse thinking into classroom. So you as a trainer, as a teacher, as a lecturer, what you should do to infuse thinking into classroom, into your classroom. That is what we are going to discuss. Okay. First of all, in the introduction, developed countries' early concerns for teaching thinking. you know, like we are talking about 40 to 50 years of experience. Many developed countries started teaching thinking, okay, to their students, whether through like even including what we call it, kindergarten, through educational games as well. Okay, so but the early concerns included infusing thinking into curriculum and in classroom as well. Okay, and for that, there is an international conference on thinking that is held every 2 years, I believe. In 2009, it was held in Malaysia, in UPM. I attended. In 1997, it was number 8 at that time. It was held in Singapore, and Alhamdulillah, I attended both, the one in Singapore and the one in Malaysia, organized by UPM. Okay. The importance of upgrading our educational systems to meet international standards. That is also very important. That's why we discuss also this issue, okay? The necessity to equip our students with better learning skills. How to do that? So that is the kind of the objectives that we try to fulfill when we talk about infusing thinking into classroom. Okay. Relationship between lecturers and students changing. Okay, I attended a conference on higher education in Malaysia, 2003. It was held in 2003. I believe it was organized by if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, in that conference, they started talking. Most of those who gave talks actually coming from Europe and Canada and United States. Means people with experience. We are talking about people with experience. The relationship between the students and lecturers is actually changing. So by the year 2000, they started raising this issue, you know, as a higher concerns, as a, you know, some higher concerns for educational policies. Okay, so in what sense that relationship is being changed? Okay, it can be briefly what we call it summarized into two major changes. The traditional relationship between lecturers and students, education was lecturer-centered, as they call it. It was teacher-centered, okay? But since the year 2000, okay, we were talking about 2003, since the year 1000, now they said it is changing into student-centered, where lecturers become like more or less as facilitators, okay? The students are the one who are, they become responsible for their learning. But for sure, the lecturers, the teachers have to play a role to help the students to fulfill that objective or that vision, or we can say that, or that mission. The mission is, or the task is, to change education into student-centered. Okay, another point I would like to share with you is they were talking about two-way relationship. Okay, two-way, lecturer students. But now we are talking about not only lecturers students, but actually students and students. So like now, the relationship in the classroom, I hope you consider that, you imagine that, that now it's not just communication, two-way communication. It's not just only two-way communication. If you have 50 students, 20 students in a classroom, okay, with the lecturer, you are talking about 51 or 21 ways of communication. Okay, so like you want your students also to get involved, not only the students talking to the lecturer, but actually the students are also talking to other students, discussing with other students, sharing their ideas, insights with other students in the classroom. So that is the kind of relationship between lecturers and students. We have to start with that and imagine that before we continue into our session today. Okay, one more issue is that there was what is so-called students between spoon-feeding, passive approach, and active learning approach. So with the second theory, with the new theory, with this kind of relationship between students and lecturers and students, it's more of, by the way, now we are, is that the learning is no longer passive. It's no longer spoon feeding. Okay, so that's why the teachers, the lecturers have to change their way of teaching, their methods, they have to change their plans for the class. They have to change for the way they deal with the students, as we will discuss today, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, in this way, inshallah, if we do that, we are talking about interactive learning. This is very important. And my brothers and sisters, even though this has some Western perspective element, but I tell you, the Prophet ﷺ used to do that with his companions when he teach them. He involved them. By the way, in education, they also call it engaging students. Okay, this is another term that I would like to share with you. It's engaging students. How would you engage your students? How would you engage? So like when we look at the Prophet ﷺ style, by asking questions, direct their attention, having discussion with them through dialogue, allowing them, encouraging, not just allowing, encouraging them to ask questions. This is the kind of engaging students. This is the kind of interactive learning that we are talking about today, now in our session. So please take note of that. Also, I would like to share with you, we are coming from the four mazhab background, Sunni background. So like, you know, all the four scholars used to engage their students in learning to the extent they mention, like one example, Abu Hanifa rahimahullah wa radiyallahu anhu wa an ulama ajma'in, he would let his students, in one scenario, they said one time, someone was visiting Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, and he noticed that the students are making noise, not making a noise per se, rather than, you know, they are in discussion. So like Al-Imam Abu Hanifa will give them one issue, fiqh issue or usul fiqh issue, and he asks them to discuss. So they will have different views, they will have different opinions, they have interactive thinking is a necessity for students. By the way, this is taken from also sources and references. It's not just this is taken from books by experts. But actually, I should maybe, provide one, I believe, is Swartz from United States. I attended his sessions in both in Singapore and Malaysia. I believe his name is Swartz. This one who is, okay. So we have actually a number of experts. This is taken from experts. Why interactive thinking is needed in the classroom? Number one, to maximize the level of learning outcome. To maximize the level of learning outcome. Okay? If the previous level of learning outcome was 60%, we want to make it 80%. Okay? Number two, to enhance participation. You know, now when we teach, when our students come from high school, I'm teaching creative thinking like for first year or second year students. Students are silent. Students are passive. We want to engage them. In interactive thinking, we want to engage students. So that's the only way is to enhance their participation. Means that they share what comes to their mind. Right, wrong, there is no. One thing maybe I share with you. How to deal with students' wrong answer, by the way. Okay? How to deal with a student wrong answer. You know, if a student gives a wrong answer, how you deal as a teacher makes a difference. If you tell him wrong, don't expect him to talk or participate for the end of the semester or to the end of the year. Remember this. Even your child, even your kid, so the way you deal with the wrong answer, don't tell him, oh, this is wrong. No. How do we deal with that, our brothers and sisters? You tell your kid or you tell your student, oh, that's amazing. You see what I'm saying now? Say, oh, you want to tell me he's wrong and I tell him that's amazing? Yes. And interactive learning, we tell the student or the kid, amazing. How did you manage to arrive at that? You see, how did you manage? So you are helping him or her to make connections. By the way, in doing so, the student might discover that he's wrong. That will be much better if the student discover that he's wrong by himself. If your son or daughter discover that they are wrong through the dialogue, when you ask them, oh, that's amazing. How did you reach at that? You know? Okay. And then let's say you help him to make better connections. Like, you know, like what? Okay. Okay, I can, you see now my next point, I can see the premises, you know, that you use to get into the conclusion. Okay, but then I ask him or her, but can you think more about it? Take your time, take 5 minutes. Do you think that the introduction or the premises leads to the conclusion? Is it necessarily? Does it lead to that? You see, you are helping him to make better connections between an inference and what we call it, between an inference and a conclusion, between a premises and a conclusion. Okay. Number 3, to be independent in thinking. We need our students. They are the leaders of the futures. They are the future leaders. So we want them to be independent, whether it's your son or daughter or whether it's your student. You know, we don't want to think on their behalf. We want them to think for themselves, brothers and sisters. This is why we need interactive thinking in classroom. Number 4, to create an encouraging environment for creativity. You see, the environment, the class environment, you know, engaging the students, letting them to speak their mind, even they are wrong, you know, going between the, you know, don't stand still, standing there in front. You have to go from, is like a bee, you know, from going from one place to another place, listening to them, paying attention, okay, attending to their need, okay. So by that, you will create an encouraging environment. That is why all the Sahaba have no fear. They dare to ask the Prophet questions because of the environment, because of the encouraging environment. But look at us. If you don't have this ease in teaching, if you don't have an environment for sharing ideas, if you don't have an environment where people can make mistakes, no one will be participating. There will be the environment will be what? Silence, passiveness. So try to avoid this passive mood of the students. That's what we try. Number 5, to achieve competency at international level in all fields of knowledge. To achieve competency, competition, to be competitive. You know, now schools compete with other schools. Institutions compete with other institutions. So we want this tanafus, competition. We want to go for that. Competency also means ihsan. It means perfection. It means higher education, higher level of education. And the last one, number 6, to produce a better generation. To produce a better generation. This is very important for every one of us. A better generation, your son should be better than you, than me. My son should, my daughter, she should be better than the mother. The student should, you know, we should be out of our caves, out of our, what we call it, blocking, other blocking systems. Okay, the next one, preparing good learning environment. That's why including the seating arrangement, according to those who teach or infuse thinking in the classroom, they say the old way of seating arrangement is no good. The lecturer, maybe it should use, the classroom should use the U shape. One of the suggestions is to use the U shape. You understand? The U shape arrangement. So like the students are more facing to each other, the lecturer attending to everybody. So the seating arrangement makes a lot of difference. Okay, the old seating arrangement is 2 stages, it's 2-way only. Okay, the psychological status of the lecturer, enthusiasm. You have to be enthusiastic. You have to come to classroom with energy, enthusiasm. You know, you want, it's not, you know, just imagine if you say, you know, you come to classroom, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum. Today we will discuss a new topic. You know, just compare it. Assalamu alaikum. How is everybody? You know, the psychological status. If you are enthusiastic as a lecturer, the students will be enthusiastic in learning. Remember, if you are in a good mood, your students will be in a good mood. Remember that. That's what it means. Okay, the right start means that if you start by shouting, finish. If you start by what we call it, staring eye, or this or that, or saying negative, don't say negative expressions. Okay, why I see you say something nice. Okay, you know, why I see you this or that. Oh, make the right start. Start with a friendly mood with the students. That's what it means. If you want the students to be engaged, that's what it means. Infusing thinking means to make the students engaged and involved in that learning, teaching, learning process. The role of the teacher in creating the right atmosphere for teaching and learning. So it's the role of the teacher as a facilitator, as a murabbi. You need to create the right atmosphere. For me, that's why I would use sense of humor. That's what we learn from our teachers and lecturers, you know. Use the sense of humor from time to time, at least to create, you know, not the whole time, but at least, you know, to me, maybe twice during a class session, I would say things that will make the students happy, or what we call cheerful, you know, make a comment that will cheer them up. That's what it means. Creating the right atmosphere. Everything, you know, your way of looking at the students, your way of moving in the classroom, the way you deal with the students' answers and questions, whether questions or answers, you know, the way. If a student asks a simple question, don't tell him, what is this stupid question, for example. It's not only that student. You are, you know, influencing all the students who are inside your class. You know, for you, yes, maybe you want to enjoy silence. You will have it. You got it. But that's not the type of classroom that we want, my brothers and sisters. We want to have a live class. We want to have what I call a beehive. Okay, a beehive. We want our classroom like a beehive. Students are asking questions. The lecturer is responding here and there. You are engaging students are making discussions and this and that. But in an organized way. I agree. It should be in an organized way. That's why if you need to get in, okay, brothers, okay, let us give a chance for everybody. Can we listen to this these two, you so and so by their name, calling the students by their name? It's good that to memorize, and that's what our Prophet practice. Call people by their name. Okay, so let's first listen to Abdullah and Ali, or Samira and Fatima, or something like that. It's the role of the lecturer. The use of the proper terminology. Okay, to use varying terms, word splash that encourage, improve, promote, and exploit thinking. Remember, we discussed in one session the terminology. You know, what do we mean? Like, you know, how would you compare and contrast You see now, in your questions, how would you compare and contrast such and such? Okay? Anyone in the class can tell me, how would you assess the following idea? You give them the idea and you ask them to evaluate it or to assess it. You see, assessment, evaluation, comparing and contrast, that is all what we call thinking. So you need to involve the students, like, you know, we have this problem, okay? Can you think with me? I give you 2 minutes. Can you also discuss with your next door, neighbor? Okay, I'll give you 1 minute or 2 minutes. How would we overcome the following or such and such? Okay, so use the terms that encourage thinking. When you say, when we say, how would you analyze? Or you ask them to analyze or to evaluate or to compare and contrast, okay? Or what would you infer? You want them to infer, to conclude, or to, let's say, or whatever, okay? So you give them a quotation. What you get from there, something like that. So using the proper terminology. Promoting inquisitiveness, asking questions. We discussed that earlier. We need to promote inquisitiveness. Simply instill in your students inquisitive minds. Not you are only asking, but by encouraging them to ask, okay? So you ask and encourage them to ask. When you ask lots of questions, you are promoting inquisitiveness. When you allow your students to ask questions, you are promoting inquisitiveness. So my brothers and sisters, promote inquisitiveness inside the classroom. Okay, implementing skills through teaching. So just now, try to make the students, this is the second theory, that teaching thinking is not by skills, but rather than applying the skills in what they learn, whether it's English, whether it is history, whether it's chemistry. So try to leading the students' minds via building up and developing a new mental attitudes, such as reasoning, such as analyzing, comparing and contrasting, inferring, evaluating, okay? How to infuse the skills in learning, okay? Engaging the students, involving the students. Let's go. Dealing with the students. It's very important when we talk about infusing thinking in the classroom. It's very important how to deal with the students. Attracting students' attention, okay? And remember the attention span. The attention span, they said, maybe you are able to keep the students' attention for 5 to 10 minutes. So that's why you need, after 10 minutes, you need to do something. You know, do certain move, ask this or that, you know, or cheer them up, or ask them, like some teachers even like ask the students to stand up, okay? Do 1 or 2 stretching exercise or what, so that the students' attention span becomes longer. Number 2, using different methods of teaching. So different methods is very important. Teaching by what? Teaching by asking questions, teaching by demonstration, teaching by, so there are different methods, different ways of teaching, okay? Explaining, how would you explain a topic in 3 different ways? Allahu Akbar. That is a challenge, okay? Intervals of rest, you have to pay attention. Remember the types of students. We have the smart students, we have what they call the timid students, and we have the takeover. Don't let the takeover, the one who would like to answer every question, the one who would like to ask the questions all the time. So give an equal chance to everybody. That's what it means. That's number one. Pay attention to different levels of understanding for students. Okay? Remember that. So you have the types of students. Means maybe in terms of mental power or understanding level. So pay attention to that as a lecturer, as a teacher. And then dealing with students' responses, that one I have already told you. You need to be smart in dealing with students' responses. The main thing is be positive. Don't put the student down. Encourage the students to, through dialogue, to give a better answer, or maybe to explain their answer, okay? Or at least help them to reach that their answer was wrong by themselves. Let them find out. It's not you telling them it's wrong, rather you have, can you do that? This is the challenge to me and everybody of us. Okay. I think this is all. Maybe we allow time for question and answer. Okay, so please.
Alhamdulillah, thank you so much, Prof. Very interesting and challenging also. Not easy to become an effective teacher in the classroom. Yeah. So anyone, we have a long comment by Sister Bibi. Anyone want to ask live? Sister Bibi, how about you ask live your comment? I can unmute you. Okay, my sister Bibi, go ahead.
Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Yeah, I actually do not have a question, but I just feel that you hit the nail when you say that problem-solving based learning, because in Singapore we used to have problem-based learning many years back. And I find that you are absolutely right that since Abu Hanifa time, this approach, this methodology have been adopted. And
Yes.
Based on my reading, when I was doing my diploma in Islam, certificate in Islam, sorry, they also have this both student and teacher-centric method used by the Islamic scholars in the past, depending on the context and need at that time. So it's not really new in today present context. It's just that I think we, the Muslims, are not using or taking out all the khazanas, our knowledge in the past, and using it. It took the non-Muslim to take all the khazanas and rebranding, repackaging, and it become their knowledge. So that's one aspect that I want to share. The other thing I find that now with the explosion of knowledge and information, we are now moving again from teacher-centric to student-centric, because we were talking about a full engagement of students. So we are now moving, trying to get our student to be a self-directed learner. So this idea of self-directed learning is also is being pushed now, which I think is not really new, but to many people this is a new thing. So teachers actually play a very important role to facilitate and helping the scaffolding of the learning of the student. So I think moving on, I think the Muslim learners and scholars must really change our paradigm. Instead of just waiting the learners and the scholars from the other part of the world, particularly the Western part of the world, to tell us what to do, I think we have the biggest responsibility of unpacking, unearthing our own gems and values of the
Yes.
past, yeah. And then we don't do direct moralizing, imposing method of teaching, and being prescriptive. All this is not new, but it is quite new for many unknown young learners. That's my sense lah. Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Yes. If you allow me, Brother Shahran, I
Yes,
have a few comments here. Thank you, sister. I visited Singapore at least 3 or 4 times, and Alhamdulillah, I had a good experience with the schools there, including the religious schools with Mu'iz, Sister Farah Al Junaid, and many others, and many of the teachers. I had very positive, at least one time for about 1 year. And Alhamdulillah, you are doing great job for sure. That's one thing. My comment is, by the way, we need, as I mentioned at the end of my session, we need to use different methods of teaching, not just, so like, by the way, it's like, as you said, the self-learning. It's good to help our students to go for self-learning and find out, but this should be also, by the way, should be under supervision and facilitation, very especially at the beginning. That's one thing. We may give them, that's my way, we may give them a few, let's say, problems or issues or challenges where we direct them to go and use this self-learning, come back to us with what they learn and discuss. Okay? And like for me, sometimes what I do, I ask them to do it in a group, even though it's self-learning, but they do it in a group. And then, by the way, for the problem-based learning, we need a leader for sure. We need to have a mosaic. Let's say we have different levels of students within one group. We make sure that everybody is playing their role. Also, that's why we need also some supervision, this and that. But the main thing is whether it's self-learning, problem-based learning, we have many styles or methodologies, or sorry, methods. So I think the good teacher needs to have an exposure to all these methods and able to use it in classroom. That's one, with the students. That's one thing. Number two, I have only one concern with the self-learning, sister, also. Please also be careful with, when it comes to our kids or students, not to become too much independent in self-learning. Why? We want them, it's okay, you form your own judgment, your own opinion, yeah, what you find out, this and that, but it's good to share it with others, discuss it with others, whether it's the teacher or the classroom, the other groups, that's why we ask the groups, when we appoint the leader, there will be also someone taking notes, someone maybe be appointed as a speaker. Okay, so we ask them to share with the class, with the other class groups or the class members. That would be also great. Why? In this way, the students will share. The scholars say, sharing minds. It's not sharing ideas, it's sharing mind, or mind sharing, actually. Mind sharing, or not just idea sharing. So in this way, I think there is this kind. That's why De Bono calls it, by the way, I want to share this with you. I hope one day we have a session, but I need at least about 1 hour and a half, teaching thinking based on De Bono, I've done this with Mara schools in Malaysia, by the way, with the teachers from Mara schools. He has a book. I would encourage you to read the book, his book, Teaching Thinking. One thing I would like from that book to share with the sister from Singapore, and for all, sharing with all of you actually, from brothers from Indonesia, Africa, I believe, many other places, from Bangladesh, from India. Okay, I came to know that we have, mashallah, people from all over the Muslim world. Okay, De Bono call it sandwich. I don't know, they call it sandwich style. What is the sandwich style? Individual, group, individual. That is the simile or the analogy of a sandwich. Like in discussion, so, and in learning, make it independent, group, independent. We can go back and forth in this way. So he call it, you know, students will be independent. You see, now we can achieve more than one goal or objective. To be independent, the one we mentioned, that's one thing in their thinking. But and also as well, the ability to listen to other people's views and appreciate it, and the ability to maybe to go for dialogue, to go for even for debate or this or that. So this is the beauty of both independent and group learning. So thank you for raising the issue, sister.
Okay, we take a quick one from my brother from Accra, Brother Imam.
Assalamu alaikum, Prof. How are you, sir?
Alaikum assalam, mashallah.
Yes, yeah, this is Saeed from Accra, Ghana. Prof, thank you so much for in
what
fact,
is the time you're there, Brother Akram?
In Accra is it's now 7:34 in the morning.
Oh, okay, mashallah.
Yes. Prof, in fact, my part of my question you just answered, getting to the end of your submission now, and that is really how to deal with some of the students who, or the learners who, as you mentioned, some of them are takeovers, others are timid. Is it the teacher's responsibility to say, okay, know how to deal with them, or there is a way to really bring some of them to know how to do the sandwiching, which means you know, you be a little timid, a little takeover, a little of that. You know, is that a way to go? That's the first aspect of my question. The second thing is the way of thinking, particularly within the teacher and the student. A lot of these books that have been written, I'm sure they have been written in the mindset that we are talking about face-to-face teaching. Now today, this time of teaching over the internet, teaching over the webinar, and so how do we? Are we going to take it same, or there's something that we need to add to it? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for raising this great, good question. The first part, when you said, you know, classify or knowing the level, I would call it knowing the level maybe of understanding of students, and also the paying attention to their characters, psychological characters, intellectual characters, this and that, and then managing. All in all, we actually gain experience through teaching. So if we pay attention to this matter, hopefully we will gain experience in dealing practically with the students in classroom. We might have different flavor, we might have different approach, me, you, and the others, but the main thing is to be in control and give a room for everybody. That's the main thing. Get everybody engaged. Don't give equal chances. That's the main message, to control. But also there are other means, like when you involve just now I said, when you put students in groups, group learning, like the problem solving based learning, they say that there should be at least maybe around 5 members, this and that, and make sure that students are coming from different background, maybe different levels of understanding, or because students learn from one another, by the way. When we ask the students to make presentations in class from each group, also the students learn from each other by listening, by paying attention to those maybe good speakers or those who have this or that. So they learn and they can develop, okay? They can develop their speaking skills, this and that, little by little. We help them to develop those skills also, okay? So being patient, allowing them, you know, attending to their needs, all these, the way we deal with their responses, you know, those types of encouraging them, you know, like, you know, sometimes I tell my students, I noticed one student, I say, I know some students who are silent, they are better than those who speak. But the problem is, you know, like, the problem is, maybe they are not given the chance of, I'm sure, okay? Anyone would like, and after that, right away, I would say, anyone would like to share with us? You know, some of them will be encouraged. And then I make a comment. Didn't I tell you? That's what I told you exactly, right? You see? So encouraging them. The thing is, what we need is encouragement. You see, many issues are there. Control, encouragement, the class atmosphere, the class seating arrangement, everything. But that is the first aspect. The second aspect of your question is now using the what you call it, webinar, and like Zoom and Google what we call it, Meet, Google Meet, and yes, WebMax, many others. The thing is, I believe, if I think one issue is the number of students. When we talk about students, like, well, with you now we have about 120, or it went up to 118 or something like that today. I you know, pay attention to sometimes to the number of participants, but to me there should be there are other issues. Maybe I can share with you some other time, but I cannot put it in details. What we need the experience of those who have a longer experience in teaching via Zoom and webinar. Okay, but to me, from my humble experience, the less number, the better. If you want to, in that case, we can allow everybody to use the mic. Okay, like in a big number, it's under control. Who's going to talk, or only by chat? So I think one thing we need to pay attention to is the number of students. We try to minimize. Very important. Number two, for sure, what I mentioned today in infusing thinking applies whether face-to-face or to whether it is also a virtual classroom. Even virtual classroom, the environment should be there, the way that, you know, that not the two-way, rather than the multiple way of communicating should be there, encouragement should be there, attending to the needs of those who are participating should be there. So I believe what has been mentioned in the PowerPoint there, and I explained, applies as well to the virtual classrooms. But however, for sure, brother Mukhtar, Sayyid Mukhtar, is that we need to have special considerations for issues that are raised or rise, sorry, from the virtual classroom. In virtual classroom, we need maybe to apply even like now, sharing screen is very important when it comes to webinar. It's instead of using the smart board. So also this is another issue. Okay, so it's not just the ustaz coming and talking. It should, you should have sharing with the students some kind of smart screen or sharing screen, PowerPoint, whatever. Even the way it's designed, Dr. Brother Shahran was telling me just before the class, before the session, sorry, that it makes a difference. You know, it makes a difference when we have like a special designs for attracting attention, or at least the where the students or the participants feel ease, feel more comfortable. It's more convenient when they go for the session, for sure.
Thank you very much, Prof. I really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Prof. As usual, we have other questions on the chat. I will forward to you. Inshallah, we'll experiment new method next season, inshallah, in August, September. We have few ideas to make a house as a classroom. You give a lecture and then we are in the house together with our friend and family, learning together as a group. We have another idea also, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah.
So much, yeah. See you next week, inshallah. See everyone in other classes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.